This week on the Mirror Football Podcast, no one stays on their feet as City gets stuck against the Toffees. Lionel Messi could sort that out. The Wenger in, Wenger out campaign stoked up again as Hesse paints a picture about how it's gonna be. Wembley woe for Spurs, Conte suits back up, and another Mourinho masterclass that, in the words of Trevor Francis, was full of pace and power. What else is on the programme, Big Tom, the producer?
In the video section of the podcast, which is also available on YouTube, we squeeze a moose into a West Ham shirt and why you should probably pick Newcastle forwards for your fantasy team next week.
Plus, Pep reacts to the news that Raheem Sterling actually finished a chance.
Get in touch on Instagram or Twitter.
Hey, hello, thanks for listening and watching and subscribing. Whatever you've been doing, get in touch on the Mirror Football Podcast by tweeting us at Stay On Your Feet or Instagram at Stay On Your Feet TV. A blistering start for Manchester United. Liverpool right on the Mane.
No again.
Arsenal losing at Stoke, so much to talk about. And of course, last night's game between Manchester City and Everton, and the referee making a couple of ricks. What else is coming up?
Yeah, pressure on Spurs with Burnley visiting this weekend. Visiting teams raising their game at Wembley, maybe.
Possibly.
The Southampton-West Ham game, what
crazy
a
game.
Yeah, crazy entertaining. And NBA superfan Jack Butland putting in another amazing performance.
He was very, very good, and we'll speak to Shay Given about that in the next few minutes here on the podcast. Who else is on the show to discuss?
Well, we've got John Cross, the chief football writer for the Mirror, coming up. We've got Shay Given, as you just said, coming on, Newcastle legend, and we've got the duo of Davids from the Mirror, David Maddock and David McDonnell, to talk all things Merseyside and Manchester.
Okay, before we get started, would you fancy another
Matterface mind bender?
I've been looking forward to it. I've not looked at my notes just so that I can have it fresh.
Do you know who's got the most Champions League winners in the Premier League in their squad?
Most Champions League winners in their current squad?
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to be any of the top four because we've not won. An English team's not won the Champions League for years and years.
2012, 19th of May.
Good knowledge. Don't know. It's going to have to be a lower team.
Stoke City.
That was a quick reveal.
Stoke City. Well, that's not the question. The question is how many do you think they've got?
Right.
And who are they?
Who are they? Jesse, the scorer, has got to be.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. That's one of five.
One of five. Shaqiri's
hips don't lie, and order his medals.
From Bayern Munich.
Take the show. Don't get too excited.
No,
don't
I'm
go
stuck.
early. So you've got five to get. You've got two. Hesse.
Three more.
And Shaqiri. Say Hesse, not Jesse, by the way. Hesse.
Sorry. I'm just going to let you segue into your smooth...
Joshua Kadison number. No, I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so yeah, if you want to get in touch as well and tell us if you knew these five Champions League winners at Stoke earlier than Tom did, at Stay On Your Feet on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll reveal the answer before the end of the programme. John Cross, the chief football writer from the Mirror, joins us to discuss Arsenal's latest defeat, Tottenham banging the drum for Wembley, and how things, well, can change remarkably well if you just switch your suit and tracksuit round and start wearing it once again. Hi John, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Sam. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, Chelsea winning at Wembley, was it all down to Antonio Conte switching his wardrobe?
Well, what was he doing earlier in the season going tracksuit? I mean, I just didn't understand it. Him on the touchline last season was a real part, I thought, of the drama and the success and the soap opera of Chelsea's title success. And it hasn't felt right all summer, to be honest, with his whinging and his moaning. And then on top of that, the blue tracksuit, I mean, for a guy that just oozes class and Italian style, we've missed that suit. And clearly the players have as well. But listen, I do actually think that his histrionics on the touchline are a part of his management. I love the way that the energy feeds out into the players. But I thought it was a really good Chelsea performance. I thought it was back to what we had last season. Yes, there were players missing. Yes, there were players playing out of position. So it wasn't perfect, but so much was about the rearguard action and how on earth are a team going to try and break them down. Actually, I thought as much pressure that Spurs had, and they certainly had chances first half, I didn't actually think they had created too many clear-cut chances second half. And that, again, is a tribute to Chelsea's resoluteness and defending, and that the way they kind of the quality of the Alonso free kick and then the breakaway goal for his second, I just thought was Chelsea back to their best, back to doing what they did last season. So I do think that will be a huge lift for Chelsea.
I just wonder if Chelsea winning at Wembley has a multitude of consequences, not only for Chelsea but for Tottenham as well.
Yeah, I do think it does, because this was a given. This was supposed to be the game that really revives Tottenham's feelings about Wembley. And look, they won't like us talking about it. Mauricio Pochettino certainly doesn't like talking about it. He got hot under the collar, having taken lots and lots of questions in broadcast and in front of the TV cameras. By the time he got to the written press, he was really snappy about it, which is unlike Pochettino, because he's very normally calm and cool. But he didn't like it. It's 2 wins now out of 11 games at the new Wembley, and that's got to get under your skin for a team that based their whole success of last season on their home form. So I do think that was a real issue, I think, and will continue to be so. It's hard to make out what it was. I felt that they did Spursify it, in as much that the colours were there, and it felt like a home game in as much as, as far as it could be. But I just think there's something there, and the more we talk about it, the more it gets under their skin and the more it upsets them. I mean, Burnley on Sunday, they absolutely have to win that, but you felt that against Chelsea as well. And the thing is about Chelsea, you can dismiss that because Chelsea are a quality team and they're champions, and it's a London derby. For Burnley, it will be one of their cup finals. It will be an opportunity to play at Wembley that some of those players will never have again in their careers. So you can't tell me that it won't lift their mood.
That point was what I was just going to allude to, John, is that Tottenham played quite well against Chelsea. I thought they had a fairly good game, but do you think it is the not for want of a better phrase, lesser teams raising their game at least 10% when they face them, not the Chelseas but the Burnleys of this world for this coming weekend?
Yeah, I do. I really think it's a valid point, because I think week in, week out that they've got to make that place a fortress. I think it's a shame on Wembley, by the way. I don't like Wembley being used week in, week out. I think we've seen it on occasion, obviously, with Spurs, and also, back in the day, Arsenal as well. And we've seen it, obviously, sort of blended into semi-finals. And I think it takes a shine and edge off the cup finals, in my view, which I think is a great shame moving forward. But I think there's no doubt about it. For those smaller sides, and I don't want to be patronising here, it will give them one hell of a lift. There will be no easy home games, no bankers for Spurs all season, because Sean Dyche will love the occasion. It will feel like the Wembley suit. It will feel like walking out at Wembley. It will feel like his cup final. I mean, he should go and buy himself a carnation, because it will feel like something special in May, and that's what it will be like. Those Burnley lads will love it.
Chelsea obviously winners, so that was good for them. I'm not getting too excited about it because I still think there's work to do, especially in terms of bringing players in to bolster the squad. But not a great weekend for Arsene Wenger and Arsenal. The saying goes, 8 out of 10 cats can't be wrong. So what does that make Arsenal, seeing as they failed to win in 8 of their last 10 trips to Stoke?
Well, the amazing thing was that they actually managed to do it under pressure last season, didn't they, when I think Stoke had run out of fuel. So maybe we thought it was going to be different, and it doesn't, and that's the issue, isn't it? It doesn't feel different at all for Arsenal. I mean, I sort of kind of feel that it's the same manager, it's the same old players. There's not enough new signings. The ones that they had last season, which didn't work out, haven't really been moved on. And all this talk about a big change, well, it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. It feels exactly the same. And for Arsenal, I think it will be such a struggle this season to get into the top 4. But it just felt familiar traits. I mean, yeah, I do actually think he had a point, Arsene Wenger, about the goal and Lacazette. People sort of say about it was a smidgen offside. Well, actually, I think the ball was a smidgen off Giroud's, foot by the time the sort of the freeze frame has been taken. If there's a doubt, you've got to give it to the striker. I thought it was an equaliser. But to be honest with you, I do still feel that would, I wouldn't say paper over the cracks, because I think Arsenal played well enough, and on another day they could have won or drawn the game and arguably didn't deserve to lose. But Arsenal have got to be their own worst enemy on that. I thought Lacazette, a couple of times the ball went into him in the box. He had an opportunity to shoot first time, didn't. Welbeck was wasteful, I felt. And so all the old familiar failings, and particularly in defence, were there, and I don't think there's been enough change at the club.
I was reading Martin Keown this week, and he was describing Mesut Ozil as an expensive luxury. The Stoke police force sent out a tweet which claimed he'd gone missing. I'm not necessarily sure that was the right thing to do, but they did it anyway.
Me neither. I thought that was poor taste. But it was a giggle, but poor taste.
Are Arsenal going to give him a new contract, really, or are they just going to wait till the end of the season, let him go and shake his hand and say, OK, we thought it was going to be a lot better than this, but time to move on, son?
Oh, they want to give him a new contract, without doubt. But I think that, to be honest, most people would see that as much of as protecting the asset as actually kind of wanting him truly to stay. Because let's be honest here, guys, Mesut Ozil hasn't had a raft of offers like some of the other guys have. Sort of like Alexis Sanchez and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. So it's changed, and I think Mesut Ozil, I think at some point might turn around and say, you know what, I could leave on a free and maybe get a really good package as a free transfer, or I could stay here and being offered £300,000 a week, because this is uncharted territory for Arsenal, incredible, but it's about the asset. And look, I would still argue when Arsenal are playing well and dominating a game, Ozil's a world-class player. I do like Ozil. He's a really good player. I know he divides opinion, and he divides opinion amongst Arsenal fans. But when Arsenal are on top of a game and they've got possession, he's a beautiful player to watch. He's the sort of player that that Arsene Wenger has made his career and reputation upon. And I do like that sort of player. But when you haven't got the ball, when you are chasing a game and things are not working, but you're also not getting on the ball, then Mesut Ozil, as Steven Gerrard described him, is a liability when he's not on the ball, because he doesn't work for the team.
Before we let you go, got to just talk about an issue which hasn't been solved for a long time, and that's the Arsenal midfield. I was with Danny Murphy yesterday, and he kept saying, Shaka Khan. There's an 80s reference for you. I know you'd love it.
I like it. I'll be dancing.
I did feel for him.
Oh, no.
Granit can't tackle without giving away a foul. I mean, that issue has to be solved, doesn't it?
Well, Granit also can't tackle, but also cannot seem to pass at the moment. It's ridiculous. I mean, you could split last season, Granit Xhaka, into two parts. The first season I thought was a disaster, punctuated by ridiculous challenges which got him into trouble with referees and suspensions. And then the second half of the season, he really showed signs, blimey, this could be second season syndrome, which for Wenger has normally been good, because he's taken into the second season for some even of his best players, I'm thinking particularly Robert Perez, for example, to actually really come good. And his range of passing, his long range passing is great. But his passing against Leicester was so slack. And it was even, I thought, worse against Stoke. He continually gave the ball away. And then you are chasing the game, and that's when suddenly Xhaka makes these completely crazy, rash challenges. This is a guy who's been brought in, I think, to be something of a leader. He's captained Switzerland and, done extremely well, very good player. But I just don't know where he sits, because I think they found that the kind of two midfielders in front of the back three system with the wing backs either side was maybe the right way of getting the best out of Xhaka. But I don't know that Xhaka and Ramsey, even though they won games at the end of last season, is a particularly good combination, particularly when Ramsey's bombing forward.
Listen, John, thanks very much for coming on the programme. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your break and enjoy the 80s tunes that you're going to party to for the next 7 days.
Thanks so much, guys. Brilliant to be with you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Stay on your feet. Cheers. Every week, Big Tom brings his big news. What's doing the rounds this week? Because I know these stories don't get the likes and the retweets of the back pages, but this is equally as important.
They don't. This week's big news is on a hot topic from the first 2 game weeks of the Premier League, and that is handball. First, there was Ozil's criminal handball in the opener against Leicester.
At least he did something.
And this week, it was Southampton's Jack Stevens clear handball, which was quickly forgotten because of quite how bad the West Ham defending was all day.
Awful.
An often confused issue that gets fans and pundits in a bit of a flustered in a whirlwind of, was it ball to hand? You like that one, don't you?
I like, is it deliberate?
Or was it intentional? The FA have offered another clarification document or directive to give refs, players, punters and pundits the definitive 4-point guide on what constitutes a handball decision these days.
Okay, what are they?
Number 1, we've got proximity, how close the player was when the ball was blasted at them. Number 2, the movement, has the player blatantly stuck out a hand to stop the ball. We've got expected position, or commonly referred to as natural position. You can't block a shot with a hand waving about in the air like you just don't care.
What if you're a bit handsy?
Don't know. And number 4, what they call the Peter Schmeichel, that's Casper's dad for younger viewers. Exactly this, the starfish. You cannot make yourself bigger in any way to block a ball. Not entirely sure how that one's different to the hand not being in an expected position if you're not a goalkeeper, but there you go. There you go. 4 ways to separate your laws from your lies and your good shouts from your Stonewall pens.
It's time for our Game of Moans section of the podcast, where we commiserate with those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And boy, do we feel sorry for Newcastle United supporters. Boy, do we feel sorry for poor old Rafa Benitez, who he desperately wants players. He hasn't got enough, he keeps saying.
None.
He doesn't like the ones that he has got. Sadly. And another defeat, a second defeat of the season, this time to newly promoted Huddersfield. I'm delighted to say that joining us to talk about it is Shay Given, the former Newcastle goalkeeper. Hi, Shay.
Hi, lads. You all right?
Yeah. Very good, thank you. Thanks for coming on the programme. I mean, what was it like being a Newcastle fan watching Sunday's game?
Just disappointing. You know, I think their goalkeeper for Huddersfield goalkeeper made one great save first half. You know, but apart from that, they sort of huffed and puffed second half, and looking at the performance, you know, you feel it's going to be a long season for them, and you know, I think that's why Rafa's concerned about maybe the signings they haven't got in and stuff. So it is a concern, because, you know, I was there nearly 12 years. I know what the club's like for the fans up there and what it's like to play there, and for me personally, even since I left Newcastle, you know, the Premier League's a lesser club without them in it. You know, it's a fantastic stadium, and they should be in the Premier League, but I still think there's time to get some more players in, and I think they need some more, and I think, you know, it'll be very important to do that in the next, you know, number of days before the window closes. But yeah, they just you know, obviously Huddersfield just coming up as well. You know, you'd think they would at least get something from the game, and they didn't. So there'll be a few alarm bells ringing, obviously, up in Newcastle at the minute.
Rafa says they aren't ready for the Premier League. If you're in the dressing room and you hear that all the time, and he's constantly going on about players, does it affect you?
I think it's not ideal, obviously. You know, I just think both Rafa and Mike actually need to get their heads together. And, you know, it's a great club, as I say. They need to get their heads together and move the club forward. You know, by my accounts, there's people telling me they don't even speak anymore. You know, Lee Charnley, the go-between between Ashley and Rafa. I mean, that's not an ideal situation either. And, you know, as a player, going back to your question, and, you know, no, you don't want to hear them things as a player. You know, for example, the goalkeeping department would be linked with a goalkeeper all summer. And if I was a goalkeeper there, it would be unsettling, I think. You know, you'd be thinking, well, I'm training every day. I'm doing well and training in the games, and, you know, what's the point if someone's going to come and take my position? But I know it's not as black and white as that. But at the same time, it would be, you know, the other players undermine them a little bit as well. That they're always linked with other players, and Rafa, of course, the manager, saying that they aren't good enough to stay in the division. So it seems like not all's going accordingly up there, should we say?
Shay, what do you make of Joselu? I presume you've played with him at Stoke, and he's recently arrived at Newcastle. Is that a good addition to the squad?
I actually think it is a good addition. You know, people need to give him a little bit of time to get up to sort of match fitness and stuff. But he came on, I felt, at the weekend, and you could see glimpses of him. You know, he's a strong, from a Spanish guy. He's not your natural Spanish player in the sense he's not small and, you know, light and easy to push off the ball. He's actually a very strong guy. He's good in the air, and he's a very good finisher as well. So I actually think the business they've done there will be very good, you know, given the time and obviously given service as well himself. I think he'll be a good signing for the club.
Obviously this morning we woke up to headlines that Slaven Bilic may well lose his job at West Ham United. If that's the case, they're going to go after Rafa. I mean, Rafa's obviously going to be constantly linked with different jobs because of his stature as a manager. How important is it that they retain him as the gaffer?
Well, I think he's the perfect guy to move them forward as a football club, and what I mean by that is, you know, this year maybe stay hopefully in the Premier League, and then, you know, the following season mid-table, and then the seasons to come is actually back challenging for the Premier League, because that's where Newcastle should be. And they shouldn't be in a relegation. We shouldn't be talking about them, you know, not getting enough players in and maybe struggling in the division. We should be talking about them, you know, challenging for Europe. I know people maybe listening would think, you know, you're off your head, but that's the club that they should be. They should be up in European spots, and one day you would hope, you know, challenging for the Premier League. And with Rafa in charge, personally, I think he's the right man to do that. And as I say, but he needs the right backing from the club as well. So, you know, they'd be a disaster if they lost him. You know, they would. They'd have to do all sorts to keep him. And hopefully it's just paper talk, as we know. But, you know, as I say, there's no smoke without fire.
So Shay, Rafa and Ashley aside, with days counting down to the end of the window, where do you think Newcastle should strengthen? Where's the most urgent place to strengthen for this team right now?
Good question. Well, they always say the spine of the team needs strengthening. Is it too late? They wanted to do the whole spine, but I think Robbie Elliott's done nothing wrong with the goalkeeper. He's the 2 games that he's played in. But there's so much noise coming out of Newcastle that they're looking for a goalkeeper, and they must be. Centre half, Kieran Clark's there, and Lascelles, and I don't know. I just think they just look a bit lightweight the whole way through the spine of the team. And if I had the money or the backing or whatever, he's probably looking in them departments. They have a proper solid spine through the team, and then other players can come in and out. From different positions. But it just feels like even if they get a few injuries, even John Joe Shelby obviously was a big loss against Huddersfield with his suspension in the first game. He's a big player for them, and as the course of the season goes on, injuries, suspensions, all this kind of stuff kicks in, and then it shows the strength of depth you have in the squad. And me personally, I think they could do a few more players.
Last question before we let you go. On Jack Butland, he played really well. I know you trained with him a lot. You spent a bit of time with him. Lots of discussions about whether or not he's going to be the number 1 for England going forward. What makes him so good? Do you think he should be England's number 1?
I think he's got a real, massive chance of being the goalkeeper for a long time in England. Obviously, Joe Hart's got the jersey at the minute, and it's up for whoever's going to play next. But for me personally, obviously, Jack Butland is going to be a fantastic goalkeeper. Last year he was out for more or less a year with his injury, and it was a difficult season for Jack. But now he just wants to get a full season under his belt and show everyone how good he is again. And I think he could be one of the best goalkeepers, not just in this country, but around the world. I think he's that good if he can stay clear injuries and have a real good run in the team.
High praise indeed. Cheers, Shay. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Have a good
no problem.
rest of the week.
Thanks,
Enjoy the kids' holidays, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Right, it's time to look at where your next 5 points are coming from in our regular fantasy football section. I need as many points as I can get after this week's debacle, but who is doing well?
Well, at the top of the leaderboard, we've got Gareth Clark as a new leader with his team I Drink and Know Things.
Very good.
Great name. He's pulled ahead slightly, but it's still early days and very close at the top. If I could give players one bit of advice this week, load up on West Brom defenders. Form and fixtures are looking very good for them.
Yeah, Hesse, who's just scored for Stoke City, I think he's going to get quite a few fantasy points because he's going to be... Listen, they don't have many goal scorers. Last season, their top Premier League goal scorer was Peter Crouch with 7, so they need a little bit of inspiration. He's going to be their go-to man. He's also not only a man of sublime football skills, but he moonlights as a recording artist. I think you should get extra points just for that.
Really? What's his name?
Hey May.
Hey May.
Yeah, you Google it. I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, he's a proper superstar in every single way. Not only on the football pitch, but with the recording mic as well. Don't pick anyone in West Ham's defence. That's my advice this week. They've conceded 91 goals in their last 50 Premier League games and have conceded more penalties than anybody else in the Premier League since the beginning of 2015-16. If you need points, pick someone who is playing against West Ham, and this week that's Newcastle.
That's why we were saying Newcastle.
So Newcastle forwards all day long. I know Newcastle didn't look great against Huddersfield, but they're surely going to get a chance against West Ham United. Let's start by speaking to the Mirror's Manchester correspondent David McDonnell and the Mirror's man on Merseyside, David Maddock. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let's start by looking at City and Everton from last night. And I think the first thing we have to talk about are the red cards. Can we stick them both in the "that was harsh" category?
I think so. I certainly think so. I think the first one was completely harsh. I think if you look at the replays, I think the referee clearly feels that Walker used the elbow, but the replay showed he clearly didn't use the elbow. There's some debate as to whether the fourth official was involved. If that was the case, then the fourth official's got it completely wrong as well. Second one, Schneiderlin, he won the ball. I think it's very harsh, but the argument is that he was out of control. He flew in. But the danger is we're going to see tackling outlawed. He won the ball fairly. Aguero made a meal of it. There was contact with his I think his left leg coming through as well, with Aguero's left leg rather. But I do think on the balance, I think both red cards were harsh, certainly.
I think both of them were probably the result of reactions rather than the actual offences. The first one, the Everton bench probably overreacted significantly, and that seemed to influence the officials. The second one, no doubt Aguero's reaction got the booking in, and both of them probably weren't red cards. You can make an argument that in both cases they were a bit rash, but and with Schneiderlin in particular, you really, when the referee's looking to even it up, you really don't want to give him an opportunity, and clearly he did.
Dave, also at Everton, Jordan Pickford, talking of big possibilities for England. Jordan Pickford has got the ability to be England's number one, hasn't he? And he displayed that again last night. They've conceded 1 goal now in 5 games. It's been pretty impressive for him in his start at Goodison Park. Yeah,
he's had an amazing start, actually. He's only young, so and I think he's still got some learning to do. Maybe in his sort of presence when in really congested areas, because he's not the biggest keeper, but he's been fantastic. Against Hajduk Split, he had nothing to do for, 70 minutes, and then suddenly, from nowhere, he had to do 3 or 4 saves, and he actually basically kept Everton as favourites in that tie. And then again against City, and what better stage to show it. It's funny because when Everton paid 30 million for him, everybody's saying absolutely crazy. But it really, really doesn't look such a bad fee now, does it? Especially compared to the money City spent on their keeper.
Talking of Manchester City and spending money, Lionel Messi's been linked with Manchester City this morning. Is that absolutely fanciful, or is it something that Manchester City might do and blow PSG out the water and take all the summer transfer window headlines?
Well, Sam, it's something you can never discount. Learning football, never to discount anything. The one club that Lionel Messi would go to if he would leave Barcelona would be Manchester City. The owners and the officials there have privately indicated that he has the relationship with them from Barcelona. I think it would be an extraordinary move if it did happen. I think it would not upset the balance. I mean, he's a great player; he's the world's greatest player. So you would never suggest that it would be a detrimental move. But I think it's difficult to see how he would fit into the current structure there at City. They have a way of playing. They've got Jesus, they've got Aguero, they've got all these attacking-minded players. Something would have to give. If Messi came, then Aguero would surely go. I'm not so sure it'll happen. And of course, for Barcelona, it would completely destabilise them to lose Neymar and Messi in the same transfer window. I think it's a great story, but I can't see it happening personally.
Well, talking of Barcelona, smooth segue into Liverpool, their performance of the weekend. What did you make of that? Was it another huff and puff, get it over the line performance from the Reds?
Do you know what? I thought we're bound to get onto the subject of Coutinho, and the problem Liverpool have had is just before every game they've played so far this season, there's either been a bid from Barca for Coutinho, or him putting in a transfer request, or his family saying that he's unhappy or he's been treated badly. Liverpool have had to deal with this every game, and obviously, players say, "Oh, we don't care about it, we're focused." Of course they care about it. It really bothers them. The manager's really bothered, and yet they've got the job done. They were at Watford. Yeah, okay, they dropped points they shouldn't have done. They should have won that 7-2, but at least they've been getting the job done. And I think the message is finally getting through to Barcelona now that perhaps he isn't for sale. So maybe Liverpool have got through the worst of it, and you'll start seeing them being a little bit more coherent, maybe taking a few more chances.
Manchester United winners again, 4-0, David McDonnell, and a club that you know very well, Jose Mourinho, looks like he's very happy. I saw him sort of pretend smoking a cigar in the centre circle with Paul Clement at the beginning of that game, and he's right to be all smiles, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, you couldn't have wished for a better start. Two 4-0 wins. You expect them to beat the opponents, West Ham and Swansea, but I think it's the manner of those wins. I mean, they were both very different. United steamrolled West Ham. They could have scored more. Against Swansea, it was more closer than the scoreline suggested. They were 1-0 up until 80 minutes, and could have had Pogba sent off. There were a couple of rash challenges there from him that could have seen him sent off. And then they, obviously, with Swansea changing their system and really trying to go for that equaliser, that opened them up, and United took full advantage. I think the thing for Mourinho at the moment is that he's got so many options. That squad, the additions of Lukaku. Okay, Lindelof hasn't started yet, but he's got so many options. You look at Martial coming off the bench to score 2 goals. as well. He's sending out a message to Mourinho. So Manchester United are looking very strong, but I think the real test will come when they go to Anfield on, I think, October the 14th. They've got Stoke, I think, Leicester next, then Stoke, then Everton, Southampton, Palace. But then the real test comes with Liverpool and then Chelsea and Tottenham in succession after that. So I don't think we can really make any judgments about their title credentials until they face some of the big boys.
They look absolutely massive as well. Before we let you go, could you solve one mystery for us, David McDonnell? Why did they call you Disco?
I get asked this all the time, and it's a state secret. I have to keep that air of mystery around me. So
it's definitely something to do with his dancing. I'm sure it is.
I'll give you a clue. Ask Graham Hunter. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to do that. Cheers. Thank you very much, boys. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you. So we've had Chris from Portsmouth trying to squeeze into a very natty number from 1995. Yep. We've had Dale, the PE teacher, trying to get into his old Newcastle United jersey. Muscle fit, yeah. He was very toned. We like that. But when it comes to squeezing into old football shirts, they don't come much bigger than this.
Hi, I'm Ian the Moose Abrahams from TalkSport. Big West Ham fan. I'm going to see if I'm fit to wear the shirt today. So I've got a West Ham shirt. Oldest one I could find, a bit battered I'm afraid, from the early 1990s, probably about 92, 93. So am I fit? I'm going to be able to fit into this shirt. What do you reckon?
Well, looking at it, I mean, that shirt, he says 92, 93, it might even be earlier than that. The sponsor's been taken off. I think the sponsor was BAC back in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks quite big. I mean, that's just quite frightening how big he was even 30 years ago.
I don't know, because obviously from his radio there's a big thing about how big he is, but on the screen he's not as big as I thought he'd be.
I thought, I saw him the other week and I said to him, I thought you lost a little bit of timber.
Yeah, he looks slim there. Well, not slim, but he looks slimmer than I thought.
I think he's chose that shirt on purpose so that he slips into it rather easily. And all the jokes about him, being a little bit rotund, which he perpetrates, by the way.
Back.
He loves it. He can turn around and say, well, I slipped into a piece of clothing from 20 years ago. So let's find out, is the Moose fit to wear the shirt?
So here I am, going to see if I'm fit to wear the West Ham shirt from the early 90s. I don't think it fit him in the early 90s, if I'm honest, but there we go. I've got no chance of getting on it now. Oh! It's a bit snug. Is there actually a place for my head? Hang on a minute. Look at that.
To be fair, I'm impressed that he's got into it. I mean, I noticed he had to make sure that the button was undone in order to get his head through it, because that looked to be a real task first of all.
The window people, is that the BAC?
That's the BAC, yeah.
Wow.
I know, fantastic. But he has got into it. What I think is really interesting when you look at it is that the body is really tight, but there's just so much room in the arms. Now, either that's just the way they made those shirts.
Yeah, they were a bit flouncy in the 90s.
I mean, this is supposed to be quite baggy, I think. Yeah. And that is about as tight as it comes. So, listen, well done to him. Fair play for getting involved. We appreciate it.
He's got involved and he's put the shirt on.
Listen, we're just happy that he took part. And it's good to see his body naked, because we all talk about it so much. We should be treated to that. Right, okay, if you want to get in touch and take part in this, maybe you look a little bit better in your old jersey than the Moose does in his, and maybe you retain the sponsor. I'm still disappointed that sponsor wasn't on there.
Yeah.
Then get in touch. The WhatsApp number is on the bottom of the screen. That's it from us. Thank you very much for getting involved in the programme. To the Davids, to Shay Given, to John Cross as well for getting in touch. We really appreciate that. I'm off to Old Trafford this week, to St James's Park this week.
Wow.
And I'm going to watch Everton play against Hajduk Split as well, which is
big week.
A massive week for me. Really looking forward to that. The Champions League draw is on Friday. You'll be hoping that Liverpool are just in it, right?
Yeah, but confident. Looked good in the first game, second game at home, should be there.
Okay, mind bender answer.
Yes.
We're looking for 5 Champions League winners that play for Stoke City. They've got more Champions League winners in their squad than anybody else. Who are they?
I had Shaqiri.
Yes.
I had Hesse.
Yeah. Ex-Barcelona players. Think ex-Barcelona.
Afellay, but he doesn't. Does he really play for him?
Afellay. He's so cute looking, isn't he, Afellay?
Don't know.
His little face is just so cute.
All right.
He never plays though.
Come on, another clue. I'm not going to get the other two.
Another Barcelona player who's got sort of Balkan heritage.
Bojan.
Yeah, he's in there. And the other one is a former Manchester United player.
Dazzling Darren Fletcher.
So Fletcher, Shaqiri, Hesse, Afellay and Bojan, they're the 5 Champions League winners that play for Stoke City. More of that next week on the programme. If you want to get in touch, it's at Stay On Your Feet on Twitter, at Stay On Your Feet TV on Instagram. What you got planned for the rest of the day?
I'm going to try and find the social media expert from Empire of the Cop that convinced me Sadio Mane wasn't playing against Palace and ruined my fantasy team.
And meanwhile, the Stoke police force are going to find their social media expert who decided to put that tweet out about Mesut Ozil, probably arrest him and throw him in a cell. We'll see you next week.
See ya.